name's Kelly Marino. I'm a professor of history at Sacred Heart in Fairfield and also the director of the Women's Studies program on campus. My research is on the history of women's right to vote. And this is my third year working at Sacred Heart. I love the community and I love our university. The way that I got involved in actually researching women's history and gender studies is really sort of an interesting story. I was at the University of Massachusetts Amherst working on my MA, and I needed a topic for my very first research seminar, and I had no clue what I was going to study. And so I was kind of digging around looking at the Hartford Current, the older issues of the Hartford Current, and I came across Emily Pearson, who is a suffragist from Cromwell, and I'm originally from Cromwell as well. And I started to read her story and I felt very inspired. She was very much an outsider in the community. She was someone that didn't fall into conventions. She had very progressive thinking. She was a communist. She really believed in women's rights and workers' rights. And she also chose a non-traditional lifestyle. She didn't marry. She lived sort of a single life for most of her life. She adopted a child. Very strong woman, very outspoken, and her story really resonated with me as someone that my own life really just didn't fall into the conventions of getting married, having a child, and a family at a very early age and pursuing higher education. And so I just felt like I really connected with her story of being an outsider. And so I started to get involved in the suffrage literature through Emily Pearson, and I just couldn't believe what the women not only in our own state, but across the country, internationally, had gone through to get this right to vote. I mean, I just was shocked at some of the struggles. A lot of the women that I actually research and study, I found were administrators or teachers. A lot of the suffragists came from that background. And so that's actually kind of one of the things that got me excited about this topic of women's right to vote, because I came from the teacher education background as well. I'm really particularly excited about talking about especially some of the 20th century books that are in the exhibit, like Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, I think was so powerful, and getting women involved and motivated into being politically active in the late 20th century, getting them to come together to talk about these personal issues and how they could become important political issues in the future. She was just, had such a huge influence, and she's a controversial figure. There's a lot of sort of debate about her as a leader in the women's movement. At first, she sort of shunned the LGBTQ rights activists, then later came on board with it. So I think she's a complicated and interesting figure. I also think a lot of the books are reflective. They kind of tell the story of women's changing gender roles over time. So I think it's going to be interesting to sort of look at that progression over time and some of the different ways that women have contributed to society and sort of their role in society and how it's changed throughout history. So lately I've been really interested in Patsy Mink. My students would say I've been really talking about her in class a lot as well, because I think she's a famous female figure that hasn't gotten a lot of attention but was very significant to U.S. history. She helped draft the Title IX legislation, which really allowed for greater equity, not just for women in sports, but also for women in higher education. Most of us today wouldn't be even able to do what we are able to do if you're in higher ed without the work of her and others. She also ran for president on the Democratic ticket in the 70s, which a lot of people don't realize. They think some of the current candidates were the first ones to run for a major office on a major political ticket, but there are people who came before them as well. And she also overcame a lot of personal struggle and tragedy in her life, in discrimination even as an Asian American woman, to be as far as she was politically at the national level in U.S. politics.